Today we're going to be talking about how to draw peony flowers in the style of a traditional Japanese tattoo. First of all, I'm going to walk you through how to draw a very simple traditional peony, and then we'll step things up and talk about how to draw something a little more advanced. This is the second video in a series of tutorials, so if you haven't already and you have time, go back and watch the first after you finish this one. Also, if there's something specific you'd like to see in future videos, let me know in the comments below. This is the perfect video to follow along to, so grab your iPad or a pencil and a piece of paper and let's get into it. I first start by looking for reference for my drawing. I'm not looking to copy anything directly, just a few images to get some ideas flowing. I will collect a mix of reference from old Chinese paintings and sometimes photos of real flowers. But a real good tip is searching for some old Meiji period Japanese antiques. Old vases from that era seem to have endless amounts of priceless reference. Once I'm happy with the reference I've collected, it's now time to start drawing. I begin by making a dot. This is my centre point and then two circles. The first is the inner tight petals of the flower, and the second is to mark the outer larger petals. Quick fun fact for you, the inner ball-shaped petals are called petaloids, or maybe more commonly, the bomb or crown, and the bigger outer petals are called the guard petals. I'm going to begin by very loosely marking out where I want each petal, starting with the bomb petals. If you could imagine, these petals are younger and less developed, so they are smaller than the bigger outer petals. It sounds silly to say, but try and envision yourself holding the peony flower. How would it feel in your mind? I imagine the inner petals to feel like a tight cluster, more rigid ball-like and less springy than the outer petals. At this stage, I'm only loosely marking out the petals, really not worrying about details at all at this point. All I'm really doing is just trying to get a feel for the composition. You can see here that I'm duplicating this layer. It will make a good starting point for the more advanced version of the peony, which I'll show you a little later on. With all the petals loosely in place, I'm going to go back through the drawing and start building up the structure and start adding details which makes this flower look distinctively like a peony. The aim here is to make the bomb of the peony look like a ball wrapped in petals. Because of this, you have to imagine you would only partially see the top third of the back two petals. At this stage, I'm starting to flip the drawing to make sure the flower looks even both ways, which is something I do constantly with every drawing I do. If I flip it and something looks off, which quite often it does, I make adjustments until it looks right. Flipping drawings is a really good habit to get into long term. It tricks the brain into seeing a drawing with fresh eyes, which makes mistakes and symmetry issues instantly visible. Once I'm happy with the bomb petals, I start refining the guard petals. Something that took me a long time to get right was simply not to make the peony look too symmetrical. Obviously there's symmetry at a glance, but the same as in nature, every single petal will be slightly different in shape and size. As the peony starts to take shape, I can see something I'm not happy with. The top two bomb petals don't seem right. There isn't anything necessarily wrong with it, but I feel like it would look better with an extra petal. The peony is literally known as the king of flowers in China. Over there, it represents wealth, beauty and high status. I guess you could say this flower is a version of royalty. Either way, the peony has always been seen as super powerful, a protector, almost larger than life flower. Now that I'm happy with the composition and all of the petals are in the exact position I want them, I go back through with a final darker tone before adding the leaves. Just recently I've started adding lines to the inside guard petals, which adds a little movement to the flower. When adding the leaves, I think it's really important to understand that the leaves of the peony can make or break the tattoo or painting that you're creating. It's worth studying what a peony leaf actually looks like before attempting to draw them. In this example, I'm going to show you the very basic form, and in the more advanced version, which is coming up shortly, I'll show you how to do leaves that are a little more dynamic in shape. So this is it for the first example of a peony complete. As you can see, this is a lot simpler and more traditional version. This style is always my personal go-to, but if you're looking for something a little less traditional and a little more advanced, stick around because we will be covering that next. When doing a peony that's more complicated, I like to use some reference. This old vase is a perfect example. I first start with the same template and again loosely map in the petals. The difference this time is that I'll have the bottom of the flower more open and it will have less symmetry and more petals. I want this flower to feel more organic, if that makes sense, so less rigid and a little more lifelike than the last. The overall process is exactly the same though. I find a really good practice for a flower like this and a chrysanthemum, which I'll be covering in the next video, is to try and not think about it as much as possible. As silly as this sounds, try and disconnect your mind from what your hand is doing and try and find that magic flow state. Trust me, it's a real thing, and when you find it, amazing things happen. If I pull up the last flower here, you can see that the formation of this one is a lot more random, with each petal very different from the last and giving myself more freedom to play around with the structure and folds. The rear very top petal here adds too much height to the back of the flower and changes its perspective, so for this drawing I'm going to leave it out. It's important to establish the overall perspective you want, and for this image I want more of a 3/4 view. The same as the petals, I'm going to make the leaves of the flower a little more dynamic by adding a few folds here and there. The shape and structure of the leaf is the same as the last flower, but the only difference is I'm adding some folds to the tips. You can go as wild as you like with this bit, but for me personally, if it's overdone with the folds, it can look a bit too illustrated and new schooly, but this is a personal preference and is worth playing around with. If you want to experiment further with the shape of leaves, it's worth typing into Google peony flower Chinese painting, where you'll find lots of beautiful reference to work with. So that's it for today. If you got value from this video, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any further questions about today's video, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your questions. Please feel free to share my video with a friend, as it helps my channel grow and reach more people. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.